Brace the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an Enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. Start converting your B2B audience today. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started today at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
There is no hood like parenthood. Hi, I'm Kanika Chadda Gupta. I'm a former CNN journalist, mom of 3, including twins, and host of That's Total Mom Sense, the podcast. Now, if I had $1 every time I heard, gee, you have your hands full. On my show, I interview change makers on their life lessons, legacy, and superpower of intuition, which I call our Mom Sense and Dad Sense. I've had the privilege of working with Mom 2.0, March of Dimes, and the White House, and have had some pretty amazing parents on my show.
Hey, what's up? I'm Kelly Rowland.
Hi, this is Chelsea Clinton.
It's me, Bobby Brown. Can't wait to share my story.
That's Total Mom Sense is a production of the Evergreen Podcast Network. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube so you never miss an episode. To join my tribe, visit that'stotalmomsense.com and follow me on Instagram at Kanika Chadda Gupta. Now let's dive into today's episode. Okay, can we talk about something that usually doesn't make the group chat? Taxes. As moms and dads, we're juggling careers, school forms, activities, investments, maybe even rental properties. And yet most of us approach taxes reactively rather than strategically. As a small business owner and mom of 3, I've learned this firsthand. Filing your taxes is not the same as having a tax strategy. That's why I trust my friend, enrolled agent Sapna Agarwal. She works with dual income families, entrepreneurs, consultants, and anyone with equity comp or real estate, people who want more bang for their buck. Sapna looks at your entire financial picture, business deductions, retirement planning, stock options, multi-state issues, all the moving parts that get complicated when you're building wealth and raising a family. What do I love most? She's proactive. Because the real ROI isn't just what you save this year, it's the mistakes you avoid and the long-term clarity that you build. She's offering a complimentary 30-minute consultation, and she'll even review your prior return for missed opportunities. Strong families don't just earn, they plan, they build, and create clarity. So if you're ready to feel confident about your finances, reach out to Sapna at sapna.ra.ea@gmail.com. Again, that's sapna.ra.ea@gmail.com. And her phone number is 646-484-8121. Again, 646-484-8121. Happy tax season. Hello, everyone. You are watching That's Total Mom Sense, and today I'm joined by a very old friend of mine who's a newfound author. Her name is Parul Somani, and she is a speaker, author, coach of resilient decision-making and intentional living. Parul, welcome to the show and welcome back to New York.
Thank you. It's lovely being here.
So nice to see you, and I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Yes. I want to take it back to how we met because we were in our teens then. Yep. This was when you were studying at MIT, so you majored in computer science and electrical engineering, and you went on to earn an MBA from Harvard as well. So a classic overachiever, everybody. And we met through dance,
yes,
which was so special. It was actually BU had to perform a small little was a filler act for MIT's Bhangra Blast, and you were one of the spearheads of that. And our friend Payal, who's the founder of Saad Dance Company, was there. And I can go back to that moment. I have a photographic memory of when we were, 19.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so young.
So it was so great.
And so much life has happened since then.
I know. Could you take us back to that time, though? Because we do have Gen Zers who tune in, and I think just the perspective really sets a special tone. So take us back to collegiate Parul.
Oh my gosh. Collegiate Parul, especially high school version going into college, thought she had life all figured out. And it was almost so precisely false that it's comical. Like, I thought I was going to be a corporate lawyer for a high-tech company. Mm-hmm. Like, obviously every high schooler's dream. But it did lead me to MIT. It led me to want to major in engineering because I thought I could get that background and then go on to law school. And it was only when I got to college that I started to learn that there's all these other careers out there. So a few things happened at that time. One is I started to professionally learn about the world of consulting and Wall Street and this opportunity set of careers I hadn't considered before. The other was my husband and I overlapped in college, and
had your love story?
over 20 years later are still married.
Yes.
So that started in college. And this love for dance that I've had ever since that I was a child, I got to explore in new ways in college as well. And so I think I really grew. MIT might have actually have been like one of the earliest and hardest sort of resilience tests for me, because going into this major of electrical engineering, computer science, simply driven by this idea of being a tech lawyer, wasn't at all aligned to the person that I actually was or am. And I really struggled with that major. Freshman year, I actually had a professor tell me I should probably reconsider it.
Oh, gosh.
Which for any sort of high achiever type personality is a real hit to the ego. Fortunately or unfortunately, it actually drove me to work harder. And I don't know if that was necessarily the right answer.
Yes.
It drove me to actually want to stick to the major and prove to them and myself that I could do it. But did that actually serve me best? Did that actually make for a great college experience when I could have maybe explored something different that was more aligned to my interests?
Mm-hmm. Hindsight's 20/20.
I might have enjoyed it more.
Yes.
And I think current self is much more in touch with making decisions that are truly aligned.
Yes. I want to put a pin in this because I had actually done an interview with psychologist and author Jenny T. Wang. She wrote a book called Permission to Come Home, and it was about the model minority and specifically Asian Americans. And we spoke about how it's so gut-wrenching to think about, but the majority of suicides that happen in college, MIT is at the top. Yeah. And, there's students who are literally plummeting to their deaths on Memorial Drive. How does it get to that point? Because you were in that ecosystem of how competitive it was. And again, for the younger listeners who have an, internal drive, when do you know that I can actually take a step back? This is not a fail.
So a few things. One, I would say that culturally at MIT, it was not that it was at all competitive amongst the students.
Okay.
If anything, it was almost an us versus them mentality, where it's us as the student body versus the intensity of the academia of the institute. And so that part was very comforting, that there wasn't that competitive sense.
Yeah.
But I do think there's some combination of you have students coming in who have led pretty high achieving lives up into that point. There's a reason they qualified for the school. And yet the intensity of the school, how it is simply structured from even a grading standpoint, is a truly humbling experience.
Yes.
Like, just to like really drive it home on like how broken I was, like my early semesters, the first semester is thankfully pass, no fail. So it doesn't impact your GPA.
Okay.
And again, like overachiever self, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take the intro to programming class and get that out of the way in my pass, no fail semester. But then I also have to take these like intro to physics classes and others that are required that are actually inherently very difficult courses. And I was so busy preparing the lab for my coding class the night before my first big physics exam that I didn't get a chance to study for it at all.
Oh, no.
Guess what score I got on that first physics exam?
I don't know. Did you end up failing?
I got 9 out of 100.
Shit.
Single digits for someone who's like gotten A's their entire
straight
life.
A, like
to come into this
over
college.
4 point something weighted GPA. That is crushing.
I was like traumatized that
Totally.
like I'm like, am I even capable to survive at this school?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I actually still have that exam to date because I had the foresight way back when that someday I'm going to have children, someday they're going to fail, and someday I'm going to want to let them know that they aren't alone.
I love that. This number 9 does not define you.
No.
This grade is, it's just a number. It has nothing to do with like your worth and what you're going to go on to achieve.
Yeah, but when I say that it was truly my first test in resilience, that's what it looked like at that age and that season of life in college, like the academic pressure, the career trajectory through internships and everything. That's what intensity and priorities and focus looked like.
Yeah.
And I think what helped me through that was actually having things that brought me joy.
Yes.
And so that is actually a really big role that both dance and at the time, like student government, student leadership, getting involved in that type of stuff helped me stay connected to other students, helped me build relationships that lived beyond academics at the school, and just creating the capacity to do that versus just study all the time, because that easily could have been done otherwise, is what really helped me get through that academically difficult time.
I love that. And it's something that we definitely have to teach our kids starting now. They're so hard on themselves at times. And then you made almost like a hard left. I'm going to use more directional metaphors.
I love it.
Because this book right here has a compass. And we'll get into that because you use them too. But hard left, and you, instead of taking the LSAT, took your GMAT and earned your MBA at Harvard and decided to go into consulting. So share a bit about that, because I think, again, pivoting early on in life is a great skill. It's like a hack.
Yes. I think what I have naturally done at different points in my life is, clearly not in high school, so maybe it really only started later in college, but is try to pause and ask myself, like, what's actually important to me right now? And in college, it was really, okay, let me get a good internship to set myself up for a good job. And Wall Street was where a lot of the business roles were that people, Wall Street and consulting were the roles people were looking at. So that's what I did from an internship standpoint. But then when it came to full time and I thought about, well, what is it that I'm looking for out of my career, I realized that I actually didn't know. Like, I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to be when I grow up. Once I realized it's actually not going to be law. And so I wanted to keep options open. And I felt like consulting would be the path immediately after college that would leave those options open for down the road, because I could always go on to get a graduate degree, whether it be an MBA or otherwise, or I could use that as a stepping stone into another business path. And so I ended up joining Bain right out of college and ended up staying a lot longer than I expected, right?
And you went to India too?
Totally.
Yeah.
So after joining Bain, I was there for 9 years, including business school. And I worked across 4 different offices. And to your point, I actually had the opportunity to transfer to India, help start Bain's first India office, had these amazing life experiences through that. But the decision to stay was because it optimized for something different at each point in my life. So initially, those early years at Bain was all about the friendships and the growth opportunities. Like I am still friends for life with many of the people that I met at Bain all those years ago. The decision to return after business school was optimizing around actually personal things that I was initially in the Boston office, then I went to business school, but my husband by then was going to be living in New York, but we both wanted to end up back in California and returning to Bain would allow that geographic flexibility. The reason always changed, but there was always a clear reason. Even when I moved from the New York office to the San Francisco office, I had my first child while I was at the San Francisco office and the decision to return after maternity leave, it was all very intentional. But then there also hit a point where I lost sight of why am I still staying? And there was this burnout that had been building year after year after year, especially after having had my first daughter. The intensity of consulting work, the private equity clients that I was serving, and importantly also the lack of fulfillment that I was feeling from the job. It wasn't clear to me what the role was now solving for in my life. And if I was working so hard at something that I wasn't even passionate about, then it's what am I doing with myself and my time and the time away from my family and all of that. And that's where I realized I needed something to change.
Yes. And I know you follow Ikigai.
Yes.
I want you to share a bit about that. Your dad actually brought it up in a WhatsApp thread, right?
So
it's a Japanese beautiful concept.
Yes. Anyone with family-wide WhatsApp threads know there's probably lots of forwards that get put on those threads that are easy to overlook in our busy lives. And yet when my dad shared Ikigai, it was a Venn diagram. And so I think the ex-consultant in me was ooh, framework. Let me take a closer look at this. So Ikigai itself, I actually wasn't introduced to until later in my career. But as soon as I understood it, it deeply resonated with me in terms of its importance. Because what it is, first of all, is that in the Japanese language, there is no word for retirement. There's this concept of ikigai, or in Japanese, I believe it's pronounced ikigai, and it means your reason for being. And it is the intersection of 4 elements, which is the Venn diagram. It's what you're good at, what you love to do, what the world needs, and in the Western understanding and definition of ikigai, the 4th is what you can be paid for. And many of us fall in these gray areas where we find something we can be paid for, we are doing something that we're reasonably good at, and we found ourselves a job.
Yes.
Or a profession or a career. But the fulfillment that comes from doing something that you love, or the meaning that comes from the impact you're able to have to quote unquote the world, but it could be 2 people in the world, it could be 2 million people in the world, right?
Yes.
The scale is not defined. Ikigai is not defined by the scale of that. And so when those elements are missing, there feels to be this lacking.
Yeah, it's almost like a table on 2 legs. It just doesn't work.
Yes. In my book, I actually do a couple of things, though. One is I redefine ikigai, because this Western focus on what you can be paid for is very limiting. And it's also not in consistency with the true spirit of ikigai.
Yes.
So it's not about what you can be paid for, but it's about what can sustain you. And when you think about sustenance, that could be financial sustenance, because we also just need to be able to pay the bills. But it's also about emotional sustenance and mental sustenance. And you can be slaving away in a job for 20 plus years, making a lot of money, but feeling completely burnt out and spent, that is not your ikigai because it's not emotionally sustainable.
Right.
Similarly, you could be in a household situation where you're not reliant on an additional income, and you could be a stay-at-home parent, and that could be your ikigai. You could be working many, many hours in a volunteer job, and that could be your ikigai.
Yeah.
And so to define it simply by what you can be paid for felt quite limiting.
Yes.
But the other point I make on that is that we can't all be expecting to be living our ikigai in every season of our life.
So true.
So if
To be practical sometimes.
To be practical
Yeah.
and to understand that there's a trajectory to everything.
Right.
So if my 20-year-old self in college or soon out of college was like, okay, I'm just only going to recruit and work hard at the thing that is my ikigai or that is my greater purpose, I'm actually doing myself a disservice because I haven't actually prepared myself and built the skills, which is an important quadrant of what are you good at, that positions me well then to actually make that impact on the world. And so when I redefine ikigai and I explain it, I also want to differentiate between earlier on in our career, thinking about those 4 quadrants as truly separate ones. And how are we investing time in building out each of them? So building out the skills that we're good at, and then maybe figuring out what we love to do is through our hobbies. Figuring out, what impact we want to have is through volunteer work and figuring out what causes are important to us. And then it's only like over time and later in our career have we almost, earned the right and the capability set to work on integrating those 4 and crafting an ikigai that then brings meaning and purpose and sustenance to our career and our life.
Yes, yes. Well, we're living our ikigai right now.
Yes.
So a high five to that.
High five, for sure.
And it's amazing on this side.
Yes.
It's so, so nice. And again, it comes in due time. We can't be necessarily doing it in our teens.
That's right. And I will also say that I once thought I had my ikigai before.
Yeah.
And I lost it. I was laid off from it. And I think it's important to recognize, and it was very important for me to realize that we don't only get one.
Right.
That what our ikigai looks like, what serves us and sustains us will change in different seasons of our life. And it's okay to craft a new one if one doesn't work out for some reason.
Right. It's absolutely an evolution.
Yeah.
Now I want to go into your personal journey, which is just so profound, and there's moments that are even poetic. So take me back to when you were 31 years old, and the news that you got that was bittersweet around that time. You were expecting your second daughter, Mira.
Yeah. So I had quit Bain after this 9-year career, and 2 weeks later found out that I was pregnant with my second daughter. So that was one phase of uncertainty is like, okay, I'm just now shifting careers in a very big way during now an already transformative time as a mother.
Yes.
And I ended up joining a startup. So new career path, new job. And thankfully the pregnancy had gone smoothly. And it was literally hours after my new team had thrown me a surprise baby shower at the office that my water broke 2 weeks early. And, we went to the hospital for what needed to be a repeat C-section for my second. And the surgery had gone smoothly, but very soon after her birth, she had trouble breathing. And she actually had to be intubated. And the hospital that we were in did not have a neonatal ICU. And so because I was still unable to walk from my C-section, because she had just been born, we had to be ambulance transported to a hospital an hour away for her to be admitted to the NICU. And we had no idea what was happening in terms of what had caused the issue. And the doctor had framed it, unfortunately, as we don't know if it's neurological. We don't know if it's cardiovascular. We're just going to have
gosh.
to like run a bunch of tests. And so we were, as you can imagine, just overwhelmed with fear, with anxiety, with just like the uncertainty of what the situation is unfolding as, and not truly being able to do anything about it, but just like be in that space.
Yes, with a newborn and a toddler at home.
Toddler at home, newborn that we just never even got to bring into the recovery room, like where all our family was waiting. We never got those photos that everyone gets, holding their newborn baby, because she was already intubated and in the
NICU.
intubator box by the time she got brought in.
I feel you on that, because when I had the twins, same thing. No one really tells you. I knew we were going in for a C-section. My water broke too. And so it was completely unexpected, 3 a.m. So Neil was not there. So my in-laws took me to the hospital, and my OB is a godsend. But the surgery went well, but they went straight back. And I maybe got a little skin to skin, but then they were just hooked up to wires. And it was so strange. They don't tell you. And I am actually more consciously aware of room in, because with my third, he was next to me, and I was like, oh, this is room in, because the babies were just wheeled away. And it was such a harrowing time to hobble down the hallway and feed them and see them that way. So I like deeply feel what you were going through in that phase.
Yes, no, absolutely. The mention of hobbling down the hallway, breastfeeding had started out to be very, very difficult for me with my first daughter. And so it was incredibly important for me to want to establish that early and well with my second daughter. And so even though she was in the NICU, I was being sort of wheeled there on demand, and then as needed, hobbling. When the time came, because I didn't want to resort to like over pumping or all the things that had created some complications in my previous time. Now, if that wasn't stressful enough, there was actually this whole other overlay happening in parallel, because 2-ish days before my water broke, I had actually been at an ultrasound appointment for the baby and felt this itch in my chest. And the itch itself was unrelated, but it caused me to feel a lump. And I was immediately paranoid about it, because I have a family history of breast cancer. And yet when we sort of raised the flag about it, I was told it's nothing to worry about. Because I was 31 years old, I was pregnant, and so that it was likely a clogged milk duct. And I'm so thankful that my husband and I are, 1, aware of our family history, and 2, that I had gotten genetic testing done in the past to confirm that I do actually carry this high risk of breast cancer. And that information really empowered me to insist on getting an ultrasound and biopsy. And at least a referral for it.
Right.
So, the doctor agreed, and we made that appointment. But then because my water broke 2 days later, we never actually made it to that appointment. And
now you're in the maternity ward.
No, I'm in the maternity ward. I'm in the NICU.
Right.
There's this movie called like Sliding Doors. And it's so
we remember Gwyneth.
It's just
the redhead and then the blonde.
It's so applicable, because it truly is these decisions that we make in a split second that can change the entire trajectory of your life.
Totally.
It would have been very easy for us to ignore the lump, given everything that happened after the delivery. Not only was my newborn in the NICU, but after the milk came in, I actually couldn't feel the lump anymore.
So you could have just blown it off completely.
I easily could have blown it off in that time. I would have planned to breastfeed my daughter for a year, like I had ended up ultimately doing for my first. And by the time I would have felt that lump again,
it would have been too late.
It would have been too late.
Oh my gosh.
Like I literally would not be sitting here having this conversation with you today.
Wow.
So the choice to really advocate for ourselves, because even at the NICU, like the lactation consultant we were, consulting with also thought it was just a clogged milk duct. But my husband insisted. He wheeled me from the NICU to a neighboring breast clinic for an ultrasound and a biopsy. Even there, we were told by the breast surgeon that the mass feels soft. It's most likely a clogged milk duct. You can go back to your, baby and focus on her, and I'll get back to you with the results.
Yeah.
Thankfully, my daughter ultimately was discharged with a clean bill of health. They don't truly know what ultimately caused the breathing issue. Ultimately, they said that sometimes after a C-section, this can just happen, like this transition issue can just happen, and that there shouldn't be any concern for longer-term issues. So we were able to go home.
Yeah.
And we actually had this joyous couple of days where we felt like we're home, we're healthy, our family's complete.
Yeah.
And, I'm looking at this like peaceful sleeping newborn baby and remembering like, okay, that used to be the really hard time with my first. And now I'm like, she doesn't talk back.
Yeah,
like,
this is
she
great.
doesn't negotiate. This is amazing. That only lasted for 2 days. Because then on the weekend of Father's Day, my daughter's exact 1-week birthday, I got the call from the breast surgeon saying, I'm sorry, but the mass is malignant after all.
Yes.
And those words, after all, and the way she said it will just always stick with me because there was such disbelief behind it.
Right. Nobody was
thinking it. Not at my age, not in my, situation with the pregnancy. And it turned out that I had a stage 2 triple negative breast cancer, which is highly aggressive, and would require chemotherapy, a bilateral mastectomy, and breast reconstruction.
Okay.
And so that was the journey that I started as soon as my newborn was there.
That's so heavy. Yeah. And I feel like you did everything in your power to anticipate, because your mom is a survivor and your Nana G.
Yes.
So tell us about them and, how you were like, I'm going to make sure that I understand the family history to preempt, my fate.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that question because I think oftentimes people avoid having these conversations at home and truly understand their family history. And yet it can be such powerful information to be able to advocate for yourself.
Yes.
So I was very young. My mom was in her early 30s when she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And, thankfully it was caught at an early stage for her, but she faced a very difficult treatment experience because back then they just threw everything in the kitchen sink.
Yeah.
Chemo, radiation, surgery, all the things, regardless of the stage. And I was so young that I don't know if I can say that I truly understood what she was going through at the time. But I do know and remember that it was like this family secret.
Yeah.
That it was just something that we didn't talk about outside of our family of 4.
Right.
And yet it clearly impacted her health very significantly. I was a young child, but I have these memories of her, wearing a wig, but actually really not wearing a wig when we were inside the house because it was so uncomfortable.
Right.
And, they're just kind of those flashes of memories.
Yeah.
But I was aware enough to know that okay, this is something that my mom went through. And then when I was in high school, my grandfather, my mom's father, who lived in India, was diagnosed with cancer. And we don't truly know the point of origin. And by the time it was detected, it was later stage. And it was a pretty impactful time in my life because I was 14 and my sister was in college and my mom moved to India for like 6 months or so to help care for my grandfather through his treatment. And so it was just my dad and me at home, and my dad is not one to like function in the kitchen or anything like that.
Yes.
And so and thankfully my mom had like taught me how to cook and everything at a young age.
That's
like,
amazing.
So, you know, and we have
So you can hold your own.
I mean, this is like immigrant living. Like,
Yes.
you know, my dad has health problems, and immigrants back then were not just like ordering food or going out to eat.
And you assemble the village, you know, dropping off food. Maybe there's aunties and uncles helping.
But like as a student, as a child, I was, you know, it was like this
almost
resilience building,
yes.
adultifying
Yes.
experience, because
gosh.
I was doing a lot of the day-to-day cooking for my father and me, but it also was so meaningful that my mom could be there with her dad.
Yeah.
And we then went there to India after school was done to see him as well. And I still remember that final farewell because it was pretty clear that I wasn't going to
See him again. I'm sorry.
So
I'm glad you got to have that, though. Hold his hand, and he knew that you were there.
yeah.
And he was your guardian angel.
Yeah.
For sure.
So it was only when I was much older that I started having these conversations with doctors about this family history. And it was actually my OBGYN. So I was 29. I had had my first daughter, and I was sharing this family history. Yeah. And honestly, I was blessed to have an OBGYN who is familiar with genetic testing.
Yes.
Because so many aren't. There's very little training for PCPs, for OBGYNs, for doctors in general around genetic testing. And for her to actually offer it to me was life-saving.
Yes. And tell us about the gene, because there might be those listening who have it and don't really know what to do with that information.
Yeah. So there are a variety of genes that we carry that if they have certain mutations, which are changes to the gene, then the gene operates differently than it's expected to. And in some of those cases, the mutations cause it to work in a way that actually increases its risk of developing cancer.
Okay.
And there's specifically a gene called BRCA or BRCA, which many people later started to become familiar with because Angelina Jolie went public about being a BRCA1 mutation carrier and choosing to have a double mastectomy preventively for it.
Right.
But that all happened afterwards. Yeah. So at the time in 2012 that I was being offered genetic testing, I truly knew nothing about it. But it was a pretty simple cheek swab in the doctor's office that would tell me if I carry a mutation in that gene, and if I do, what does that mean? And it turns out that I have a mutation in my BRCA1 gene that gives me a very high risk of both breast and ovarian cancer. That risk is usually defined as a lifetime risk. So by the time you're like 80, I would have an over 80% chance.
Okay.
But at age 31, even at age 40, like those chances are still very, very small.
Right.
But what learning that information allowed was multiple fold in its benefits because one, it was the first time anyone in my family had gotten genetic testing done. So we suddenly had a way to understand our family history, that perhaps my mom has that mutation and maybe that's why she got early onset breast cancer.
Yes.
Perhaps my grandfather had that mutation and that's what led to whatever form of cancer that he had because we never actually understood what the original source was. And it's very possible that maybe he had male breast cancer is what it started off as.
Wow.
And I'm a mother of 2 daughters. And so even to understand then how that risk could get passed on is an important piece of information.
Yes.
what finding this information out does is it can feel scary. And I do remember getting that phone call and feeling very unprepared for that phone call because I was actually in a taxi-ish ride share going to the airport for a friend's wedding.
Okay.
Where I got this call from my doctor saying, like, you have a BRCA mutation.
Oh, God.
And I didn't even, like, understand exactly what that meant in the moment.
Yeah, it's like
but
medical speak.
It's medical speak, but it emotionally felt like a diagnosis and like carried the weight of a diagnosis.
Yeah.
And I remember just like bawling, like in that car ride, being very emotional at the wedding. And the worst was she said, why don't you make an appointment in 2 weeks and we can talk about what this means? I'm like, this is the worst 2 weeks ever.
Yes, yeah. Oh my gosh.
But when we did finally get to meet and go over what it means, it was actually very empowering because what it was is actionable information.
Right.
That I could now start getting MRIs and mammograms for screening at an earlier age than I otherwise would have qualified for. And now with these test results, insurance would cover them.
Yes.
And I, was more attuned to this risk to also then be more aware of my own body, whether it's through self-exam or just listen to my gut if I feel like something's off.
Yes.
And that's, ultimately what led to me detecting my cancer when it was still at a treatable stage. Because since I was pregnant, I was not getting those MRIs and mammograms done. And the previous ones that I had had were clear, but over the course of the pregnancy, enough had changed that a cancer had actually grown in the meantime.
Yes, yes. I had mentioned how, there was something poetic about this story when you take a step back and you're actually watching everything unfold as an outsider. But your mom-in-law, your husband's mom passed at 31. Yeah. So I do think that these synchronicities are not coincidental at all. Like, I think it's like, wow, she had that happen to her at that age, and then you resolved it. It came full circle.
I think a lot of us might have these poetic moments in our life, but aren't always necessarily connecting the dots or seeing it. It is pretty insane.
Yeah, I know.
Though, this particular situation.
Age, yes.
Yeah. So just to make sure it's like clear to listeners, I've known my husband since we were kids.
Yeah.
And, his mother had passed away when he was very young. And the first picture, like the earliest picture that I actually have with him is at his mom's service.
Oh my gosh.
It's like a puja, like a prayer service. And what she passed away from at age 31 was breast cancer. And so that Father's Day weekend, when my husband was out with my toddler for Father's Day celebrations, and he wasn't home when I got the call from the doctor, I had to share this news with him when he got back that now his 31-year-old wife has been diagnosed with breast cancer.
Same thing.
And that, I think, was triggering for him in even his reaction in the moment.
Poor thing, yeah.
Yeah, it was like the first words out of his mouth were, I can't do this without you.
Oh my gosh. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But now we're on the other side.
We're on the other side.
Which is amazing.
Yes. And
some tissues
oh
in
my
here.
gosh, I'm falling apart. Yes, he ended up for sure being such a powerful rock for me through the entire experience. Moments that could have been very, very hard, like that first day of chemo, like the words he said are what reframed the experience for me in a way that made it feel more empowering. We both learned so much. We realized how lucky we are to be supported by so much love from family and friends. And, now it's over 10 years later.
Yeah,
and
wow.
It's crazy that much time has flown by, and yet we get into conversation and I can still be so, I'm still emotionally impacted by it. But there's just so much good that has happened over the years since that we're very thankful.
Yes, I love that. And now we're shifting gears again, driving reference to this book right here. Oh my goodness. This was a joy to read, and I love how it's applicable to anyone, because life is going to have its curveballs and its forks in the road, and it's all about how you navigate it. Yep. And I want to start with the title first. So why, when you think of path of least regret, let's flip it on its side. What would be the path of most regret?
The path of most regret would be one that is unintentional. It's the path that gets chosen out of urgency as opposed to alignment. Mm-hmm. And the path that gets chosen based on a false belief of certainty, that there's going to be this guaranteed outcome on the other side of the decision. But when you don't actually have control of that outcome, then, and your definition of success of that decision is anchored in it,
right?
Then that's a path of most regret.
It's a letdown.
It's a letdown. It's a disappointment in your own self-trust.
Yeah.
Whereas if you make a decision based on intentionality, based on clarity of what is in your control, what's not, what's most important to you in this point of time where you're making the decision, and you're anchoring the definition of success for this decision in the process that you go through instead of the outcome that waits on the other side.
Yes.
Then you might still have some regret on how it plays out. There's a reason it's not the path of no regret.
Yes,
right?
I like that, yes.
And I'm actually very explicit about that because it's inevitable to not have some regret, because things might not turn out the way we wanted and we'll have this lingering feeling of wishing it had gone differently.
Yes, especially if you're type A.
For sure. And also what you actually might value and prioritize in your future might change.
Yeah.
And to think that we already know what our future selves wants and to only solve for that is also problematic.
Yes.
And so while there might be some regret, if we can know for ourselves that we truly made the best decision we could at the time by being clear on what's important to us, by collecting the information that we could gather or doing the things that we can control, and knowing that we made the choice that aligned best with that season of life.
Yes.
And that even if it doesn't work out, we wouldn't have made a different decision in that moment.
That's totally fair.
That's where not only is regret minimized, but peace of mind is maximized. The phrase itself and where this decision-making lens originated was actually back in 2014 when I was faced with the very difficult decision of what treatment plan to pursue for my cancer. And was shocked to find out that I wasn't just being told by doctors that this is what we're going to do, and that it was actually up to me to take a look at the options and provide my choice. And approaching it as like my former, corporate analytical self just dove right into the data. And it was all about, okay, what do the studies say? What, clinical trial of 4 people in Norway may or may not be applicable to my situation, right? It's just like, look at the recurrence rates, like all the things. And what I realized is that this entire training that I've had in problem solving, in decision making, was now failing me at this most important decision of my life. Because when it comes to the decisions that matter most, there is this uncertainty of the outcome, and there's this emotional layer to it all that we've never actually been taught how to navigate.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I realized that there is no easy answer. There is no path of least resistance. And I asked myself, what's my path of least regret? And I actually blogged my cancer journey real time. And so there's a July 2014 post where I describe this decision of having to choose a treatment plan. And the title of that post is The Path of Least Regret.
Wow. Oh my gosh. It was meant to be well before. Yeah. And you've always had, even your silver linings.
Yeah.
You've always had an optimist view, which I think is so important because it's positive, and regret is one of those words that have a negative connotation, So
it is. I will say that even on this point around silver linings or this point around optimism, I also think of those differently than how most people think about it.
Right.
So your reference to silver linings is that when I first launched my work as a speaker and an advocate and a coach, I titled my company name Silver Linings. But the reason is not in just the traditional sense of every dark cloud has a silver lining, you just need to go look for it and find it, because to me that feels very passive.
Yeah.
As if it's just going to emerge randomly or like be waiting in, around the corner. And instead, I believe that we can create our own silver linings.
Yes.
That it's through intention, through openness to opportunity, and very importantly, through a sense of agency that we can actually take actions to channel our inevitable hardships and dark clouds and make meaning or create positive outcomes from it.
Yes. I actually want to get into your frameworks because I feel like the tangible takeaways are going to be so useful for the audience listening in. There's 5 phases.
Yes.
So I guess briefly touch on each one and then maybe an example that we can use.
Sure. Yeah. So in the context that I just shared about choosing a treatment plan, the path of least regret began as a decision-making lens. And so it was specifically of, okay, when you're in the crossroad and in that decision point, how do you decide?
Right.
That choice of path of least regret could be, what do I do this weekend? Do I go to the party? Do I not? It could be, do I leave the job or do I not? It could be, do I choose this treatment plan or another plan? And it was specifically the crossroad. But what I realized through one broader reflection of my own journey, but over the years of now coaching others with the path of least regret, I've realized that to be of the mindset to go through the path of least regret as a decision-making lens, there's actually this whole journey that comes before and after. And so what I do in this book is now define the path of least regret as a 5-phase framework. And it's first by defining what that emotional journey is that we go through when we're faced with a drop in our mental well-being. And that can come from a sudden unwanted change, like a layoff or a diagnosis, or it can come from this gradual decline because we're trapped in inertia in a job we don't like, in a relationship that's no longer serving us, but we just haven't been able to create the change that we want for ourselves. And it's only by us understanding what that emotional journey is that so many of us traverse that we can then talk about, now when you're in each of these phases, how do you navigate it most effectively so that you are honoring it, but also moving through it in a way that helps you move forward?
Yes.
And the path of least regret defines that journey and then defines what to do in each phase. So it starts off with awareness and processing, because as optimistic or positive as, I might seem, and these references to silver linings might seem, I actually also really understand the dark moments of change.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
Of the fear I felt in the NICU, of the uncertainty I felt about my future when I got diagnosed, of the grief I felt when I got laid off from a job that I love. Just time and time again, the the uncertainty when I had to make caregiving decisions, right? And to recognize that there are just hard and uncomfortable feelings that are very human. They're very okay to feel. The solution is not to like try to brush past them or push them aside. But as important as it is to honor them, you also don't want to get trapped by them. And to process them in a way where you're also identifying for yourself if something is becoming a mental roadblock that's actually preventing you from moving forward constructively is something that requires awareness and intention to recognize.
Yes.
And it's only when you can start doing the work of overcoming those mental roadblocks, pushing past the ego or the outdated expectations or the overwhelming fear of the uncontrollable. It's only when you've managed through all of that that you can then face the fork in the road with the clarity of intention and the work that's required to be honest with yourself about what is it that you truly value, what is it that you're prioritizing, define that as your North Star, and then choose the path of least regret that best serves that.
Yes, that makes so much sense. So Parul, tell us about some tips that you have, especially for parents who are listening, who are in this messy middle. There's a drudgery. I look at my dishwasher with disdain because I feel like it just fills and empties all day long. So how can we get through that? It's not necessarily a decision-making inflection point, but it is like, I don't want to look back and be like, wow, I spent so much time in victimhood and, sitting in the burnout. And I don't want to regret that at this phase. So tell us tips that we can get out of that.
Yeah. Well, I think the first is providing a little bit more self-compassion and grace to ourselves that we are human, we can't do it all, and that we also are living our life in a world of trade-offs, right? And that if there are dishes in the sink, it's because our time was spent doing something else. And so a toolkit item that I want people to keep in mind, because it's not always easy to give yourself compassion just because someone's saying is to give yourself compassion, is to exercise the power of reframing. Reframing is understanding what is the narrative that you're telling yourself and how could you change that narrative to better serve you. So, for example, I referenced earlier how my husband had held my hand that first day of chemo and told me something that changed my experience. I was sitting there scared about what the side effects of chemo were going to be. I was like spiraling on the downside of it. And he held my hand and said, "Today, your tumor is the largest it's ever going to be."
Oh, wow. Wow.
It didn't change the circumstance. I was still at my first day of chemo. It didn't change like the reality of the hardship, but it changed the narrative from being one of victimhood and side effects and struggle to one of empowerment, because now we were doing something about it. And similarly for women entrepreneurs that I've coached who struggle with this guilt between motherhood and their careers, the power of reframing has been very helpful for them in the standpoint of feeling bad that there's some work trip that they need to go to and it's going to take them away from their family, and it's an opportunity that they would actually have to pay for themselves. And so they were having a hard time justifying, there's not even like an immediate financial benefit. Like, why am I taking time away from my family to do this?
Yes.
And it was actually through a Path of Least Regret coaching session where I had her just describe that work opportunity to me. And her face just lit up as she spoke about, what it would feel like and what the opportunity would entail for her. And to help her reframe this opportunity as not something that is taking her away from her family, but is something that is energizing her and rejuvenating her so that she is even that much more energized when she returns to show up as her best self for her kids. That type of reframing applies whether it's for a work trip or it's a girls' getaway, just understanding that there are always two ways to look at something, and what is the version that is grounded in truth and better going to serve you.
Yes.
Those dishes in the sink, it's not because you're a messy person and a bad mother or whatever. It's because you've chosen to spend your time in that particular moment doing something that is of greater meaning and value in that moment.
I like that.
And if that means the dishes, have to wait until later, if that means someone else has to do the dishes and you outsource it, then so be it.
Yes.
Because you're doing it with the intention that you are choosing to spend your time and your resources in a way that you have the luxury to do, if that is available to you, on the things that matter to you more.
Right. I love that. I wanted you to give just one piece of advice to families who are navigating health challenges right now. I have a family member who passed of breast cancer recently, and it was really gut-wrenching to see because she was just in her 60s and still had so much life left. And I think what hurt more was that me and a lot of my other relatives didn't see her for 2 years. And I think it was because, she wanted to shield herself from everybody else and not have people see her in that state. I'll see you when I'm better. And what would you tell those families, or even the person who's in it right now, to don't keep it a secret? And this is going to be a hot take for South Asians who are used to doing that. How do we actually say, no, don't do that?
Yeah. It's asking yourself why you're hiding it. Because if you think that you are protecting others, you're not, because you're just delaying their pain.
Yeah.
You're not giving them the chance to be there for you, to show up for you, to help you, which is not for you, it's for them. And it's for them to know that they got that time with you, that they got to provide support to someone they care about and love at a time where they probably know you would have wanted to do that for them.
Right.
If the tables had been turned. And if you're not telling them because you think you're protecting yourself, then it's important to realize that all you're doing is actually bottling everything up.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of healing that comes in sharing with others. And it's therapeutic. I mentioned how I blogged my journey. That act of writing, that act of sharing it with others was healing for me and provided help and insight and inspiration to others for their own hardships.
Yeah.
So just recognizing that when you are vulnerable, you're creating space and giving other people permission to be vulnerable as well. And it's actually a very mutually beneficial experience.
Yes. There's healing in that. And you deserve that.
Yeah.
You deserve that. Let's end with some fun affirmations that you do with your daughter. Because we've bonded about this before, and I feel like it's just a lovely mom gem to pass on. So share that with our viewers.
Yeah. When my daughters were very young, starting from a very young age, I had put these Post-it note of affirmations on their bathroom mirror. And, of course, when they were really young, they couldn't read. And it was just something we talked about. But over time, it became something that they could read to themselves off the bathroom mirror. And it was affirmations like, I am loved. I love myself. I am resilient. I choose to work hard at what I love to do. And the fun part about it is that I would pop quiz test them. If we were waiting in line at the grocery store, I would suddenly be like, okay, what are your affirmations?
Right.
And they would just list them off. And, now they are middle schoolers, teenagers, they, aren't getting pop quiz tested quite as much these days, but the affirmations continue to be listed up in their bathroom.
Oh.
And I hope that over time it's just become wired into them that these are words, these are affirmations, these are narratives that they can carry forward with them when they face their own inevitable setbacks and curveballs and crossroads.
Yes, absolutely. And now, where can we get this amazing read?
Thank you. Yes, The Path of Least Regret is releasing this month on March 31st. So very excited about that. And it is available for pre-order now on Amazon, on essentially any major online retailer. It's available in hardcover and in ebook. And like I said, will get released on March 31st. And there may, and by may I mean there definitely will be also a self-narrated audiobook coming out as well on launch day.
I love that. I love to hear a soothing voice in my earbuds. And this book was really transformational. I love, again, the metaphors and the fact that there were checkpoints and knowing your bearings and, hearing Maya's story and Drashti's story. It was just very meaningful for me. So thank you so much for being so intentional in how you wrote it. And the compass and the North Star, it all lands. And where can my audience follow you and support you on your journey?
Oh, thank you. My website, parulsomani.com, is where they can learn more about me. They can contact me through the inquiry form, and they can subscribe for my newsletter on there. And then, of course, follow on LinkedIn and Instagram for, more frequent updates about not just the book launch, but also just tips and strategies for really living with intention and navigating life's inevitable uncertainties and changes and hard choices.
Yes, thank you. You are a real one. I'm so glad we had this chat. It means so much to me, and I'm just thrilled for this new journey.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of That's Total Mom Sense. You can listen to the audio version wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for That's Total Mom Sense. You can learn more about my guests by logging on to www.thatstotalmomsense.com. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, where I'm most active on social media. My handle is @KanikaChadda-Gupta. And if you have ideas for show topics or guests you can't wait to have on the show, write to me at thatstotalmomsense@gmail.com. And lastly, please rate, review, and subscribe to That's Total Mom Sense if you haven't already. Thanks for being in my tribe.